Well, this is being recorded at the 1st of July, and we've had a recent announcement that changes what Microsoft was saying about end-of-life Windows 10. Hang around, we'll talk about it. Well, the main issue was when Microsoft released Windows 11, it was supposed to be the latest and greatest, but really and truly, people had gotten used to Windows 10 and had no desire for the most part to do a new operating system that gave them basically nothing. So I think that all of the following is going to be personal opinion. Let me get that out there. I think what they did was, by the time they got to 24H2 developed, that was obviously being developed in the previous year, but they were tweaking it. They put a lot of AI and data mining and stuff that really, I think, violates my sense of privacy. Maybe not you, but yes, me. I just don't think they need all that. And in that process, they suddenly got aggressive about ending the life of Windows 10 because that was their competitor that was stifling the sales of Windows 11. But Windows, Microsoft, and Intel and other people, and NVIDIA, they apparently work quite well together. And so Microsoft said that these old computers, many of them are just junk now. You don't need those. They're junk. They won't do what we want them to do. We won't put Windows 11 on there. And to make the point to you, we're going to take Windows 10 away out of its support so that you'll feel tense about running an old version of Windows that's not being supported. So you buy the new one that, by the way, you have to have TPM or trusted platform, whatever the M was, I can't even remember. Basically, it gives them the power to do some nasty things to your computer remotely. And of course, they want to force you to get the Microsoft account, that kind of stuff. That's a different video that we've covered before, and the new announcement is a little bit different. So there's a good chance that by the time you see this, we'll be past October. In fact, I think this will be halfway through December if I remember my schedule. So you might have opportunity to snag some e-waste computers from people that you know are in your family, that they're going to junk the machine anyway. And if they're, worried about you getting into their private data, you can tell them, here, have the hard drive if you want, or I will return you the hard drive or whatever when I take it apart and fix it. So here's the thing. If you don't have TPM 2.0, you can still put Windows 11 on a machine. I've done it. In fact, I'm going to show you a picture of a machine in case you haven't watched this series before. You'll see it. You can do it. It's just, in my case, the processor was a 4-core processor with 8 threads, about eight years old, and it was probably time to upgrade anyway. But I don't like being told what to do. But I can still reuse that hardware. Let me talk to you about what we need to do. Well, let's take a look here. And now we get to see, I've pulled up from Amazon using Google is what I'm looking at, is the thing I want to improve the speed with, because I'll cover this in repeat in a bit when I show you this little video clip, this little 2-3 minutes of video when we look at an actual PC that I think looks pretty cool, serves my purpose, and we'll talk a little bit about doing these things or, just buying at some point you're going to do better just buying a mini PC for the type of processing power you might have available to you. So here we have some of these little cards. Now what I've been doing, and I've showed you some of those, is we've been using a PCIe expansion card to give us some ability to run hard drives in a bus, a PCIe bus. Now the particular computer that I have is so old, it's only PCIe 3. And I use this little card right here. I don't know, BJAR, I don't know what that stands for, but it's $10. So if you were to get you a free computer, could you spend $10 on the off chance that you actually have a free PCIe slot in there that takes 4 bits? Now this is a 4-bit job, so it takes full 4 lanes into it. 3 or 4, by 4, it says right there, you see that by 4. So it's a it does a pretty good job. You get full speed out of it. And let's compare that to SATA 3 in this old box that I'll show you the video on, and this little BJavar with just a dramless NVMe. So you can see the difference is quite stark. And if you also notice real close on the serial ATA I've got on the right of the screen, I didn't even let that finish testing. I cut that off, snapped the picture, and we did it. But how much do you think that's going to help the way your computer feels to you, even if it's just a hand-me-down, when you can speed up your hard drive that fast, just simply by taking out from going from serial ATA to NVMe. Now this is 3.0. 4.0 is going to be even higher than that. It's going to be about twice that speed. So this card that we just looked at, go back to that. See, this will do 3 or 4. It depends on what slot you put it in. Obviously, it's not going to do 4 in a 3 slot, but like I have a 4 drive and a 4 card in a 3 slot, and it works pretty good. That's what you just saw those crystal Dismark tests for. So, you know, $50-$60 for half a terabyte drive, maybe $100 for terabyte drive, $9 here for a card, and you're golden if you have a slot to put it in. So anyway, that's one part of it. Now in this old computer, I had another problem that I did upgrade, which was it didn't have Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. It was hardwired, 100 megabits. So here we have TP-Link. You can buy whatever brand you want to. I got one off Amazon. I made sure it had a key. What is this? This Intel little guy, the chip in here. And it's in that box. I'll show you a picture of it. It works pretty good. I don't have any problem. There's just something quite budgety that I put in there. So I got another like $30 in it maybe. So $30 plus $130. In my case, I added it. I took the stuff out because I didn't have a case because it wasn't donated to me. It was scrap parts. We actually built this machine up, and it does an amazing job on the roaster. It's quick, it's snappy because I've improved the I/O with obviously with having this disk drive in there and so much speed. You can do that and save something from the junkyard if you're interested. Now let's roll that video of the box, and I think it looks pretty good considering it's not very expensive. And then we'll come back and do some comparison. There's a few more points I want to make. So here's the idea. This came to me when the laptop that I was running the roaster on died, and I had a little bit of a panic attack trying to figure out what am I going to do? How can I put a machine together? And it just happened that I had lots of leftover parts on the intermediate build as I waited for the beast. So you might get, with the end of life of Windows 10, you might get an opportunity to inherit somebody's e-waste computer. Now this one, if you look down at the bottom, it says it's an ASRock H110M DGS. It's a pretty nice little guy. It's very simple, budget board. Not a lot of stuff on it, but I did have an i7-700, which is 4 cores, 8 threads, and it will top out at 4.2 in turbo mode. Now, I did add this, which I didn't really actually need for operational from what I'm doing, but it does let it keep pegged out at 4.2 instead of at a much lower speed as it runs. And I'm only running the roaster's software anyway for doing data logging. But it also didn't have any Wi-Fi, and it was only SATA 3. And we would have that underneath the other side. If you've looked at that video, you've seen that. How can we improve our speed? It was very simple. We used one of these little drives, and I put it in my one and only PCIe 16-bit slot. And that's fine because I'm just doing data logging, and integrated graphics are good enough. So I was able to put in a graphics card. I think that was $25 or something. Not a graphics card, a Wi-Fi card. It may also do Bluetooth, which means I probably don't need that little dongle down there, that little Bluetooth dongle down there. I have it in there. I can't remember why it's there. I can't do NVMe on this and make use of that extra speed, but I certainly can with this little adapter board. And if I don't need it, why not? So you'd be surprised how much difference having that guy in there will do to the snappiness, the feel, the overall satisfaction of an old computer. And maybe you have a pretty decent computer, but maybe the main board just doesn't do NVMe's. Now this does happen to be 3.0 because 4.0 hadn't been invented at that point in time. And the card and NVMe will do 4.0. Obviously, it's not going to if it's only in a 3.0 slot. But there you have it. That's your idea. If you can get a hold of an old machine, maybe you change the case out. I didn't have a case for this one, but... And this is not a cheap case. This is a $100 case. What is this? John's Bow. I love the case. It will actually hold a much bigger board in here than this little H110 that I have in here. These are just inexpensive Arctic fans, PWM fans, so they weren't very expensive at all. There's no glitz or shine to it, but it really does a pretty good job. And when I'm running it on the roaster, I got plenty of power to go. I'm only using a small percentage of the processor, so it's totally adequate for that. So maybe if you have a child or someone who, just needs a computer to browse on, you have options other than buying a mini computer, which we'll look at in just a second. Hey, appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, if you will, subscribe to the channel, either the YouTube or the Rumble channel, which this appears in. And if you can, check the notification bell or settings to make sure that you get notified when new videos are posted. Appreciate it. Right. Now, why mightn't you want to take an old computer like what I did and, still try to recycle it rather than just junking it all if you're going to end up spending maybe $100 or so on it? And that's a valid question. I'm glad you asked. Well, if we look at this right here, I've pulled up Amazon, obviously, and I've got the mini computers pulled up. Well, you can get one of these and it'll work pretty good. This one says it has got a half a gigabyte. That's what I've got in that machine in there. That's not a big deal. 12th generation. That's newer than my 7th generation i7. But when you start looking at the spec, the price is not bad, and they get pretty good references to them in their reviews. Some of them are really trash. One I was looking at had an i7 in it. Look good by the specs, but if I reference those reviews, they trashed it as not working very long, not working more than a month or two. Now, but you look at it and you see what you've got. 16 gigabytes RAM. This N95, that's an older processor, if I'm not terribly mistaken. They have the Alder Lake and the other lake. They're all named after lakes the way they do it. But you see what we have is N100. That's not a bad processor. It's going to have 4 cores and 4 threads. Whereas my old i7 and maybe some of your older i5s and i3s that you might have out there in, say, a give me or a hand me down computer you're saving from the scrap pile, well, they may have multi-threading. They may be able to split threads. They may have more threads than cores. Well, this only tops out at 3.6 in turbo mode. That's assuming it doesn't get hot. And most of these machines, although they have 4-core processors, they can get a little bit warmish to the touch. So you never know how much of that 3.6 you're going to be able to get out. Now there's a 150 in here somewhere. See if we can find one of those. I don't know anything about AMD. I got tired of AMD decades ago and I haven't messed with them since. But look at that price of that. That's $400 to start with. I imagine it'll perform a little bit better. But as you go to some of these other ones this has even got one of the 150 processors in there. It is a Linux pre-installed. This particular one, I don't know. I think I'd get one with Windows and put Linux on top of that, but it's $300. All right. So that's what I'm talking about. And this N150, I believe you'll find has only 4 cores. Now it is DDR4, which my old machine had DDR4, so I'm not picking up anything there. I am picking up twice as much memory as my 16 I have in it, but you can get a pretty good idea that depending on the computer you're getting, that you're scrapping into, that you may have a better deal working with something old than just buying a mini computer. At some point, you might do better just to buy a mini computer because, again, you're going to find, I think, most of these are going to top out like 3.6. My old My old processor, I get 4.2 out, and it's pretty steady at that. The difference is many of these may actually have a PCIe 4.0, which is going to be faster on the hard drive, obviously, twice as fast on the hard drive, potentially. But they also may still only be DDR4. Some of these, if you'll look, you might find some DDR5s in here, because I know I was looking at some just recently for another project. It's like, well, let me see what I can find. But most of them, I think, on Amazon are going to be kind of in this N100, N150, DDR4, 8, 16 gigabytes type, maybe a half a terabyte or a terabyte. And, it's just up to you. You're still looking at $100 or more. Does it make more sense to buy a mini computer versus an old computer? I tell you one thing that we can do with it, unless you have an Oculink, you may be better off inheriting someone's older computer if you have a couple of drive slots in there where you can actually put something in the expansions there. It's up to you. Just a thought. I'm just trying to keep from junking up my landfill. So that's it. That's all of today's show. It's just a thought. Somebody in the family, since we got Windows 10 coming to end of life, well, they do have that. Well, I didn't want to get into that. The new version is originally, when they announced end of life, I think they announced it plenty ahead of time to get everybody scared so that the ones who panic would buy new machines and then clear out all the suckers there. Once they got all that done, they also paralleled just right before all of the AI stuff in the version came out, opinion. And people were already committed. So they got those out there. Now it's kind of dried up. We're coming in within 6 months. It's sometime in October, that the end of life is supposed to be. Remember, they told us in the very beginning, no, you person, you lowly individual, you pedestrian class individual, you shall not get an extension on your Windows 10. They were going to give industry that if you paid for it, just to give them a little bit of breathing room so you didn't hate Microsoft too terribly bad. This last announcement, they've changed that now that we're down to the last 6 months, and they've pretty well much triggered everybody who was going to buy out of panic to buy. Now they've got that done. What's next? They still want people to give them their information. They still want a Microsoft account so they can have your information. They still want that stuff to kind of weasel toward your privacy, in my opinion. And so now they've opened up, if you will sign on with a Microsoft account, they will still let you have your end of life extended free of charge if you have either points or you can buy some, whatever. You check on the details. It may be changed by December when this thing's released. But they're fudging a little bit to get as much information from as many people as possible. And if you didn't already bite the bait to buy a Windows 11 based computer and you're not tech savvy, you may be able to extend 10 another year, or maybe you might be the beneficiary of somebody chucking out an old computer. And if they're checking it out, you can check it out and see if it's worth saving or not. Again, a PCIe card, expansion card with a hard drive on it, those can go in other computers if you got something better coming down your way. You know what I'm saying? So it's just an idea. I'd like to keep stuff out of the junkyard and out of the landfill as much as possible. Appreciate you watching. See ya.